Do we have a new number one? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We got another Dokkan battle video for you here today. We have an updated TUR tier list for the month of April. It is our Golden Week tier list. And it's time to see where these new units stack up against our previous tier list. As always, right, we have adjusted the way we do tier lists here on the channel. Number one, we have split our tier list into two groups, both red zone and battle hardened formidable foes, to make sure that we really accommodate for the way they are beginning to build units now, where some units are being built more for short events like battle hardened formidable foes, and others being geared more towards the red zone, although there are some that can work well in both. And of course, as always, you see that we have adjusted the way we do things. Instead of starting from scratch every single time, we like to build the list off the way we had our list previously, so we can see how the list is evolving over the course of the year, where units are moving to, and how they are doing in relation to the previous month. I feel like this is a good way to keep the tier list going. This way people can kind of keep track of what units are doing, because what tends to happen when we do these tier lists from scratch is if a unit doesn't make it into the top 10, they are almost always forgotten about or treated as if though they have somehow gotten worse, which I don't feel like is often the case. So we're going to make sure that we do our best to try to remember how good these units are, no matter where they're moving to. And then of course, finally, right, the entire list is going to be based off of the following three things: consistency, power, and versatility. When we look at consistency, we're going to look at what is the unit's job, how well do they do it, right? What purpose do they serve, how well do they do it on the teams that they are in, and how often do they do it. Then we're going to look at versatility, right? Whatever that unit's function is, are there many different places to run them? Are there many different teams to run them on, right? Those things do play a factor. Okay, and then finally, power, right? Raw power. This can come in the form of attack or defense, right? If the unit's job is defense, is their defense so great that it forgives the other two? Right? And this also applies to attack. Is the attack so great that we can kind of play around with its placement on the other two because it is so darn powerful? So with that, let's go ahead and let's hop in with our tier list. Now, we haven't updated this tier list since the beginning of April, and that is due to the fact that, I don't like to do them more than once a month, so we have gotten two new Easy A's since then, and that is the AGL Pycon and Tech Janemba. So we'll actually start with them. So let's start with Tech Janemba. If we're looking here on our, we're going to focus on the red zone tier list first. Right, so if we're looking here on our red zone tier list, right, when we talk about consistency, right, I would say that there is no more consistency than Easy A Tech Janemba, right? For early phases in the fight, he has a high amount of damage reduction, right, guard, as well as support, right? He is on many of the staple villain teams, which allow him to function to support those teams. He's on Hit's new accelerated battle team. He is on Broly's uncontrollable power team, which is still very, very useful. So consistency, he does his job well. Now with his EZA, they did kind of give him that damage reduction lowering ability, which does kind of force you to transform him, but that's okay, because now it's worth it to transform him. Now, while giving up support, now you have a unit with near perfect dodge, and when not, you can put him in slot 2, and very, very high offenses, right? So all around, he is a pretty consistent villain unit. In terms of versatility, right, being the fact that he is a Janemba, he is a movie boss, and currently there are not too many places to run, not too many teams to be running them on. There's basically Hit's accelerated battle, there's Glorio's accelerated battle, or there is Broly's still uncontrollable power. Those are probably the three main places you're going to be able to run them. You're probably not running some of these other lower 200% leads that he's on, like Buhan or Slug. You're probably not running those too much anymore in terms of them as a lead, just because of the shift to the 220% meta. Some of the older leads still work because of who they have access to, but not so much in Janemba's case. So I would say, given that, he kind of fails the test at versatility. While he can slot into a bunch of places, there aren't a whole lot of teams he currently has access to for the new meta. In terms of power, though, he's got it in spades. Defense and offense once transformed. He's got both. He's got everything you need to help push some of these teams into the new meta, right? He once transformed, right? He's easily with throwing out, right, like at the bare minimum transform level, because he is stacking attack and base, he's throwing out, 45 million supers to start, right? And if you are able to stack them up longer than 3 or 4 turns, you're obviously going to see greater power out of him, along with some pretty decent defense, considering the fact that he also has dodge. So given those 3 things, honestly, I would probably push him up around number 5. Now this is going to shift these guys down here. All right. And unfortunately, this is going to bump Cell off the list. But don't worry, he's not going anywhere. And you'll see why. Now, it's going to... It's going to bump him off. And I do think Janemba is really worthy of this slot. He is that darn good. He is that darn good for an easy A unit. If you're running him, he's not going to be your problem. We'll say that. Okay, which brings us to PyCon. Again, we are looking at consistency, versatility, and power. Consistent, all right? He is a dodge unit, right? However, his consistent so in order to get that dodge, he needs rainbow orbs. Now, fortunately, he does he does have a lot of teams where that's easily accessible for him. On top of that, with 3 type key spheres, he does provide support. He's got incredible defenses, right? Post super, he is able to tank pretty darn well. Almost every ready zone fight in the game, he can tank post super, because he is launching 2 to 3 supers per turn. So he's pretty consistent in that regard, even if he does fail his dodge. Now, where the problem comes in is the offense and defense that we're talking about really only applies if he's linked with either the new hit or the LR PyCon, right? So it's hit or miss for him. Not to say that he isn't bad, but he's definitely, very reliant on getting those characters who can provide him his links. So for consistency, I'm like half and half on this with him, just because, right, he can miss dodges and it can fail you sometimes, but for the most part, him having access to a Ghost Usher, him having access to, and the fact that his main function is third slot floater, I can kind of give those misses a little pass. Versatility, right? He is one of the most versatile superclass units. Right? If there's a team that he can be run on, that's it's actually really, there's almost no reason to not run them if you need a 6th slot, right? He's only limited by the teams that he actually has. And what I mean by that is, like, take a look, right? He's very, very limited on categories. Connected Hope, Movie Heroes, Worthy Rivals, Otherworld Warriors, Saviors, Battle of Wits, Storied Figures, Tournament Participants, right? It's pretty much all he's limited by, right? So Tournament Participants opens him up to, like, Cell's team. Battle of Wits opens him up to Glorio's team. Movie Heroes, right? We don't have quite a big movie heroes team, although Double Gods, now that they're easy A's, is totally viable. Same with Otherworld Warriors is a pretty decent category, especially because the new LR, if you have the new LR PyCon, it is a viable lead, even though it is only 200%, right? So we look at some of the 200% he's on, right? We have Cell, PyCon, and then, like I said, he is on Glorio's 170 for Battle of Wits. So it's if he's on these teams, he's probably going to be on your team for that, right? And then finally, raw power, right? Doesn't quite have the raw power, right? At best, he's throwing out 20 to 25 million supers, right? Not a whole lot there. And his defense is passable at best. It mostly reliant on that orb and that dodge if he gets it. So for those reasons, I actually would have him below Janemba. I know that sounds crazy because I really do like him, but I would probably have to put him at 6 below Janemba, as much as I want to keep him here. And so this pops our list down here. I'm going to try to avoid doing double ups here, so we will make a few adjustments here to the tier list to get that all fixed together. All right, so that is for the easy A's that we missed. They're not too far off. They're both really, really great easy A's, and if you're using them on your team, you're not going to have any problems there. So that brings us to our tier list for the new units, the Kaioken Goku and the Hit. That's what you're here for. That's what we want to see. Where did these guys rank? So let's start with rating. And the Kaioken Goku. I want to be nice here. I really do. But, okay, consistency, right? He fails the consistency test. He has a 50% chance to dodge. Actually, let's pull this up real quick, just so you can see what I'm talking about here. Okay, so he has 50% chance to dodge until he revives, in which he gets up to a 70% chance. Now, the thing with this is he has no other defensive mechanics other than a 1-turn guard for his entrance animation, and to me, that's not enough to justify a base 50% chance to dodge, right? The events are too long, and there are just too many chances for him to miss that 50% chance to dodge, because you don't want to burn your revive early, right? Which is his main function. He's very much like the GT duo, where you're playing to that revive, but at the same time, you don't want to burn it early, because you're going to lose out on big damage for the final phases. Remember, these final phases tend to have very, very large HP pools, right? We're talking 500,000 HP, which is still a lot for a lot of these teams that don't include Vegito. So 50% chance to dodge means that he's going to be very, very inconsistent as his dodge. Now, post super is, he's probably going to be fine for most attacks, which is pretty helpful. However, if he doesn't dodge pretty much any super beyond I would say beyond phase, like the Kato Prisia phase or the Kefla phase in the 2 Universe Survival Saga Red Zones, right? He will not live those supers, right? I've had him die a number of times to Kefla's super, so unfortunately, very, very not so much good on the consistency. Offensively, I mean, he's pretty consistent, right? He'll hit pretty much the same numbers 3 or 4 times, right? Starting turn 1 before he gets linked and supported up, 15 to 19 million. After that, right, you're looking at above 20 once you've got your supports kicked in and everything else. So, offensively, he's pretty consistent. Where he falls short is his defense. Versatility. Now, actually, he is pretty versatile, right? By nature of being a Goku unit, and he can slide into a lot of different categories. Being on Reps of Universe 7, right, he can slide into those teams very, very easily. Full Power is sort of coming into it on its own, so he is pretty versatile, and his conditions for his entrance are not that bad, right? If you're running him as lead, it's literally him and one other person, or him and himself, right? Now, the only problem is this condition here. When all allies attacking in the same turn are Reps of Universe 7, to get that additional 70% attack, and that the revive being the condition for the additional crit, additional super attack, for the guard, and everything else, right? Like, it's just... this condition makes it hard for him to really, come into his own. So unfortunately, he does fail the test of versatility. In terms of power, though, fully built up, right? Meaning you've got supports in, because he's not really building, right? Fully built up, so you've got your supports in, you've got your full Reps of Universe 7, you're on either your revive turn or your post-revive turn. I would say that he's decent in terms of power, right? He's throwing, anywhere between, with dupes, right? He's throwing anywhere between 24 to 25 million supers 4 to 5 times, right? So that you're talking, almost 100 million damage there. So that's not terrible, right? But it doesn't excuse, right, everything else that you have to go through to get to that point, to maintain the Reps of Universe 7 condition, which is very, very hard. Playing to that revive, like, again, yes, you get guard after doing it, but his overall defense is still low enough that, like, he's not living supers once that happens, should he fail the dodge. And so the power just isn't really there when compared to other TUR releases that have come past. Even Cell tends to eclipse him in damage. The only thing that Goku gets over him is that his revive actually deals damage, and he gets that one nuking turn. So I guess if I have to put him somewhere on this list, he would probably be at the very bottom here, at the number 10 slot, which would shift these guys down a little bit. But even then, I probably wouldn't blame you for not even putting him on the list and maintaining this right here. But if I had to put him on, being that he is a new Dokkan Fest TUR, he would probably be right here at the very bottom at number 10. Because he's just... by the very nature of being a dodge unit, he brings a lot of risk. And the unfortunate thing is, with 3 major fights canceling dodge, and just the condition of maintaining Universe 7, which really only which is kind of seeing its way out the door, honestly, even with the 2 new anniversary LRs. Unless it continues to get buffed, he's gonna continue to have a harder time maintaining his biggest condition. So honestly, I would put him at 10, or I wouldn't blame you if you moved him off entirely. So, well, for the purposes of this video, we'll keep him at 10, just so you guys can kind of see where he's at compared to everyone else. So with that in mind, that brings us to hit. Where does hit fall, right? There's a lot of things to consider when considering hit, right? Number 1, consistency, right? Hit is a attack and defense stacker. That means his most consistent thing is building attack and defense. After attacking 6 times or dodging 3 times, right? Because he has an innate 50% chance to dodge. He can then transform into his improved state, which then gains a 70% chance to dodge, and he becomes a greatly stacker, meaning 50% raise every turn. Add on to the fact that in each of his forms, right? In each of his forms, he's going to have the ability to launch multiple supers, right? We're talking, early on, we're talking, 4 supers per turn. After that, you're looking at 3 to 4, depending on your hidden potential builds. And then, he's also got that dodge ability that AGL-UI Goku has, where the more he dodges, the more the dodge builds up. As well as the HP of the enemy falls, his offense also increases, especially in fights where you can also attack and defense lower, among other things. So he is probably very, very consistent. His only issues are early dodge canceling, or fights where you may have to prolong his transformation. But the best thing is once you do transform him, no questions asked, no conditions, he has a Ghost Usher ability which can protect him. So as long as you can protect him for the first turn and then improve him in fights like the Blue Goku fight, where it can be a bit iffy to get him past the first turn, right? Like that's literally the only fight that's probably a major issue for him because of the dodge canceling on turn 1. But if you can get to turn 2 and turn 3 and transform him, then now you have a Ghost Usher, which would give him a turn to get some defense that would allow him to then begin tanking, right? He's definitely more geared for Festival of Battles, I will say that. Over all of the red zones, he's probably more geared for Festival of Battles because of the way he stacks. It gives him the ability to be one of the few units that can raw hit over 200 million attack by the end of the fight. So I would say he's pretty consistent in what he does. In terms of versatility, right? If we want to come back over here and just kind of take a look here, the main thing about versatility is his teams, right? Universe 6, Rapid Growth, Accelerated Battle Tournament Participants, Super Bosses, Space Traveling Warriors, and Legendary Existence, right? These 3 categories are basically non-existent currently for him, right? Which leaves him Rapid Growth, Accelerated Battle Tournament Participants, and Universe 6. These 2 are basically his own team, and then Accelerated Battle or Tournament Participants puts him on Cell's team, or Glorio's team, or his own team, right? He's basically, in terms of versatility, I would say that's kind of where he falls short, because there aren't too many different places he can run. And the fact that his links are basically to himself and Pycon, right? Pycon is the next closest non-hint unit that would match up with him. So, him also being limited to link partners, some of whom, like the Hidden God Goku, who is his best link partner, are, limited to only, say, like Universe Survival Saga or Legendary Existence or Accelerated Battle, right? Like, if you want to put him with this guys, your only choice is Accelerated Battle or Tournament Participants, right? Otherwise, you're basically trying to link him with himself, which is running him as lead. So, in terms of versatility, unfortunately, he does fall short a little bit there. However, raw power, this man has it in spades. He stacks offense like a monster. His defense stacking is a little bit lower, even though it is the same, just the way his offense works. His offense tends to stack faster, and because of the way it builds up. And it allows him to hit, as I said, in things like Festivals of Battles and Red Zones, really, really high numbers, really, really, really quickly. And his defense becomes passable. But again, that's also forgiven for the fact that, he has transformed into in his improved state. He has a 70% chance to dodge that builds upon itself, right? The more he dodges or gets hit, the more it increases. And, by the time you get to these later fights, he'll be tanking normals. Like, he's going to hit over 1 million defense very, very quickly, right? Like, within a turn or 2, once transformed, he will be over 1 million. So for those things, it makes him one of the best TURs in the game. However, I don't think it puts him above Kid Goku. I think I would still have to put Kid Goku where he's at, which for me kind of drops everybody else down here. Which now absolutely moves Kaioken Goku off the list. So that's why I said don't worry too much about where he's staying there, right? He's just that good. Now, if we really wanted to adjust the list further, I would probably move Kid Goku here, drop this, all right, and this way we have a solid list with no double ups here, so that drops him off and these guys down at number 10. I wanted to be higher on these guys, but the more I use them, the more inconsistent they have become for me, so that's kind of why they've slowly moved down this list. So I would definitely put Hit at number 2. Goku's just a tad more consistent. His defense is greater because of the combination of the damage reduction and guard that he keeps as he stacks. He stacks faster than both offensively and defensively. He stacks faster than Hit, unfortunately. Goku is really only limited more so by his links than anything else. Him being a Goku means he has so many teams he can fit on. He's just more so limited by the links he has access to by nature of being a DB Saga unit. But again, that's all forgiven because he's still throwing out these huge numbers in spite of that. Plus, again, dodge or no dodge, even though Hit does have that really good dodge mechanic, Goku just having straight up raw defense that can tank everything is, in my opinion, a little bit better because you're always going to have that slight risk with Hit that doesn't exist for Goku. So that's kind of my tier list for the longer events for the red zones. Festival of Battles, you know, he would definitely fit into the category here with these guys. And honestly, Glorio is starting to kind of move around on my list, but I still think he's fine here on number 3 for the time being. But this is kind of what my new top 10 is looking. I'm going to try to proceed forward with leaving just one per instead of doubling up. Now, what I will say is pretty much, you know, honestly, from 8 to 5, I would say are pretty interchangeable for me. This is one based on the criteria, but also kind of personal preference in how I run their teams, where I do tend to find these guys a little more, of the same. I would say 3, 4, and 5. I would also argue. I would not argue any change in their placement. Right? Like if you wanted to argue Goku up here, I don't see why you would. But maybe because Glorio has a little less use unless you're running his team specifically. Right? He's really hard to run as a singular unit. I could see Kid Goku being argued up here. Daima Goku even being argued because he has almost a dedicated slot on Vegeto's team. I could definitely see moving any of these 3 around here. Number 1 and number 2, it's really up for debate. I mean, it depends on what you value. Do you value consistency in the tanking, or do you value more offense, right, with the risk of the dodge? It's really up to you. What do you value? But they're both very, very good. So the question now is, well, that's red zones. What about battle-hardened formidable foes? What about those short events, right? Well, we won't have to spend too much time because there won't be too much changes in terms of the overall list. All of the things that we said apply to the units here. Consistency, power, versatility. That's still what we look for. We just look at how that is applied to a short event, right? So starting with Janemba, for me, that actually puts him he is honestly, like, if we just come here looking at what he is doing in his base form, because you're not going to be transforming him right away. He's like the fusions, right? You're probably not going to be getting his transformation out here until like the second or third appearance, which is fine, right? But you know, he's basically untouchable in battle hardened formidable foes thanks to his high damage reduction and his guard and his building attack. And then once he transforms, of course, you know, you get to that turn 3 or turn 4. If you manage to get him hit 6 times, you now have a turn where he's basically untouchable, provided you get the key spheres you need to deal damage. So I would say that for that, while he does carry a bit of risk transform for battle hardened formidable foes, I would definitely put him above these guys here. These guys are still a bit too risky to run, but you know, having to maintain a top 10 here. So moving on, right? PyCon actually gets a huge bump in this list. I'm actually putting him right up here at number 5 here on the list, and that is simply due to the fact that you know, the dodge, right, while it is pretty consistent, right, is pretty consistent with him, right? His dodge is, as we mentioned before, his dodge, right, as long as you get that rainbow orb, right, he's got that 50% chance to dodge and then the 70% chance to dodge as long as you get the rainbow orb. And his defenses are great. Combine that with the fact that, you know, as long as you are only facing one enemy and they are above 50% by turn 4, you have his Ghost Usher ability. And this is really helpful because of the way Battle-Hardened Formidable Foes shifts phases. You're probably going to be entering a full phase where somebody's at 50% for him to be able to proc that. In like a lot of the top teams on Battle-Hardened Formidable Foes do tend to utilize the Ghost Usher abilities. And so I feel like that for sure puts him at number 5 for me. Goku, I'm going to be honest, he does have some niche use here. If I were to put him anywhere, once again, it would be 10, but I really don't think he even makes the list for this, just because his team itself isn't very well signed for the team you want to be on to maintain reps of Universe 7. Doesn't really lend itself well to Battle-Hardened Formidable Foes. A couple of the units like AGO UI can find their way into it, but keeping up the rest of the team is just it's a rather difficult task, especially because a lot of them don't handle AoEs very well. There is some niche play with his revive against the phases with the AoEs, right? There's some niche play to play that out, get some big damage, revive, and then come into the next turn. But at that point, honestly, you might honestly be better off running an off-lead int boo, just because of the other conditions that you're going to have to deal with outside of doing that. At least when Boo shows back up, you have a Ghost Usher, and then, you know, you don't have to worry about anything for that turn. You're probably going to kill by that point anyway. So I don't know. It's tough to place him here. If I did put him anywhere, it would be at number 10. But I do think Cell probably deserves that slot a little bit more now that this guy exists. That's the thing. So Cell moves back in because this guy exists. Now Hit, I would say probably is going to go. He's a little bit tougher for Battle-Hardened. Actually, no. He's a little bit tougher to place for Battle-Hardened Formidable Foes, but I am going to adjust the list slightly here. I am keeping PyCon at 5 here, but I am going to adjust this list here. So I would probably just put the two cells here together. I know I don't want to double them up, but for the purposes of this, because I mean, realistically, you're not running one without the other here. That's the reality for the cell. But Hit definitely deserves the spot at. Actually, you know what? I would put him number 1, to be completely honest. Now that I'm really thinking about it. He's got the consistency, right? You only need to dodge for those couple turns. You're going to get your 3 dodges for sure. There's almost no case where that won't be the case. And then on turn 2, he has an immediate Ghost Usher. His very next appearance, if you get your 3 dodges, he's got a Ghost Usher. He's on teams that have access to other Ghost Ushers as well, right? If you're running Accelerated Battle, you have access to, if you have access to Gogeta, who brings that. You could run, we won't talk about off lead for now, but right, if you're running tournaments participants under the cell, you also have PyCon as well, right? He does it all, man. And because of the way he builds his attack in Battle-Hardened Formidable formidable foes, it means he's literally ripping through HP bars once transformed, right? Because the first attack or two, right, is going to probably will more than likely drop the enemy below 60%, and then once that 60% procs, he's immediately getting an extra attack boost, which will then probably push you, or the enemy rather, to near death, allowing you to basically finish the fight. And if he doesn't do it, whoever else is on rotation will. So that's pretty good. The fact that he has a turn 2 Ghost Usher means that, you know, AoEs are non-existent for him. If you're running a double hit team, AoEs are a 0% issue for his team, and I think that is for me what puts him above everyone else, to be completely honest, because you can pretty much ensure that no unit will ever get touched, because once you enter Cell Max, for example, right, like that's the main phase we're talking about when we talk about that. Cell Max or Broly, right? You won't need it for the first phase during the STR phase. You enter that second phase, you pop the Usher, and then boom, no AoE. You're doing more than 60% of his health, and then boom, roll into the next turn, pop the other hit, and then boom, the enemy's dead. So, like, it's that simple. And so I think for those reasons, I would definitely put him at number 1. Honestly, anyone in the red here, you could probably interchange. I'm a little high on Daima Vegeta just because, as you guys have seen, I have that very specific setup that basically ensures that him or no one on his team can actually die in battle-hardened formidable foes. But I understand that not everybody else, you know, plays that way. So, you know, if you were, I would completely understand a shift in the top 3, but it isn't too much. It isn't too much different from the red zone in terms of who the top TURs are, to be completely honest. But I am pretty confident in where the rest of these are placed. Janemba actually could move a little higher here, maybe even to 8. I could see you switching these guys around, if only because Uncontrollable Power is still a really good team for battle hardened formidable foes. Glorio, I'm beginning, now that we don't have to run him for accelerated battle, I'm a little lower on him, because the only reason he really worked is because of him being the main lead for accelerated battle. But I'm a little lower on him now that that's not the case, because you really don't want to be running just one of him around. But it is to say, if you do run 2 of him, he and his team are actually still really good for the fight. So, you know, I am pretty confident with these 2 lists at this point. So guys, that is it for the video. Those are our tier lists for Red Zone and for battle hardened formidable foes. If you guys like the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let us know, what do you think of our tier list? Again, this is my tier list based on my 3 criteria that I put here and the way that I use the units in Dokkan and the way I build teams. If your list is different, please feel free to let us know yours in the comments down below. I'm always interested in hearing, you know, other people's opinions and how, you know, how they would build their list based on their criteria. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.